Hello, welcome to Studio Snack. I'm Lydia Thornley, designer, creative director and sketcher.
And I'm Narciso Leda. I didn't think about my job title.
No idea who he is this morning.
I'm Narciso Leda, and I don't know
Friday.
who I am.
On a break in Wales, I was at a cafe and I asked for what I thought was fruitcake, but it was actually Bara brith, which is Welsh tea bread served with butter, and it was delicious. But that got me thinking about how you can go somewhere and literally get the flavour of the place.
That's an interesting, because my friend Sandrine was over the other day. She used to live in London for 20 years, and she came to visit. And the last few times that she's come, she's always come with a desire of trying something. Like last time was Eton maize and scones. And this last time, she really wanted a traditional English breakfast from a local cafe. Nothing fancy.
Oh, I so identify with that. I was stuck in Reading recently because of rail problems and had to stay overnight. The next morning, I headed straight to a traditional cafe for tea and 2 rounds of toast. But it turned out that there were things to see there. There's the Museum of English Rural Life, which is part of Reading University, and it had an exhibition on biscuits. Yay! And I discovered that Reading was once called Biscuit Town because it was home to Huntley and Palmer's, a huge factory site employing a big chunk of the town's population. There's a room about it too in the town museum. And Huntley and Palmer's supplied biscuits even to Scott's expedition to the Antarctic. But the connection that I really love is the Oscar Wilde one. He actually visited the Huntley and Palmer's factory in 1892. And I thought, why would a famous writer do that? But why would any of us do that? We all love a factory. He's in the visitor's book. But only 3 years later, he was a prisoner at Reading jail, and the food permanently upset his stomach. So there was a kindly warder who would smuggle in ginger nut biscuits for him.
Biscuits have a sense of home, or home for home.
They do, and sometimes they are actual homes. There's a gingerbread house competition at Christmas in Stockholm at its Art Des Design Museum, and it's open to anyone. It gets really competitive. You get proper biscuit architecture going on. And biscuits, I discovered, were actually designed. Something I'd never really thought about, even though I am a designer. There's a wonderful book at Reading Museum of hand-painted biscuit designs set out as suggestions for biscuits, which is a word I love for that, suggestion instead of a design.
I think there's an experiment here. We should pick up some ingredients and patterns and make our own biscuit.
Good idea. My first attempt was an apple, cinnamon and beer biscuit crafted in the shape of Canterbury Cathedral's cloisters. Marvellous, but only in my head. So I simplified it down to 2 ingredients, apple and cinnamon in an oat cookie, actually following the recipe this time, served on a plate I got in Stoke on a visit to my sister.
I've got almonds, which reminds me my grandmom's house when we used to spend summers together. And then I've put vermouth into my mix because it reminds me home as well. And obviously, being from a sit-down place, I put a pinch of salt, and it tastes a little bit like biscotti, which I've discovered later after baking them, which also they're quite comforty and homely.
So what does this tell us about design? Well, in my kitchen, I was expecting it to be all about what we put into an idea. We'd been looking at ingredients that speak of where we're from. And though my first attempt was classic garbage in, garbage out, what it actually reminded me about was the need to experiment and adapt and simplify, which is often used to people who think that all designers do is put stuff together on screen.
It's funny because I'm really bad at baking, and I started creating something that I end up, I think, creating new chemical elements, and I even created lava at some point. But I went then down to a shortbread, which I guess is the basic of the basics for a non-bakery person. I think sometimes experiments is good, but then a lot of times you have to just go back and see what is already invented and not reinvent the wheel.
You do. Biscuit?
Biscuit, please.
Join us next month for another studio snack.